This is Wizard Shack. It's a podcast of sorts. So they say.
Yeah, we do say this is Wizard Shack. I'm Pete at Wizard Shack. We're Wizard_Shack on Twitter. And yeah, I just watched just a crazy situation there. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out all my shit. Hold on. Figuring out my shit. All right, I'm live on Twitter now. Okay. Kick is not working for me. I'm trying to get on the Kick. It's not working for me. But yeah, we're live. Live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube, Twitch. Trying to get Kick to work. Doesn't seem to work. Possible stream was ended or deleted on the destination. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm gonna try again. But yeah, I am on here, and fuck, I am looking like a Muppet today.
Particular person started saying I look like a Muppet. And people say it so much, sometimes I start to believe it. And so I even asked them, I'm like, do I look like a Muppet? Oh my God.
She looks like a Muppet. I can completely be clear here. She looks like a Muppet. Yeah, I get it. You do look like a Muppet. I think that's undeniable. You look like a Muppet. You look like a felt puppet. Just how it is. Asking if you look like a Muppet is not going to bring anything good. That's all I'll say. But oh yeah, so I watched. Maybe probably a little better. I watched Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. This was an interesting watch. I watched it twice because I really wanted to. Well, basically twice. I skimmed through a lot on the second watch, but basically wanted to like judge how I feel on things and really like kind of get a mental idea of what's being said here. Sometimes you watch something once and you pass over it, and when I watched it twice, I was like, oh, I mean, I had different reactions. Actually, kind of. I think at first, the first time you see this, you're very you're triggered. You're triggered to a lot of things, and I think the second time I watched it, I kind of started to think, so. And this is, I don't want to victim shame, but the second time I watched it, I start to think a lot of this stuff is adults with an adult frame, and I know I'm sounding like Dan Snyder's rebuttal here, but a lot of this is, you know, putting an adult spin on things where, you know, you're thinking about things 20 years later and you're like, well, that's like a cum joke. It's a cum shot joke. And I don't know if I completely buy that. Um, I remember, I mean, again, as a kid, I never thought that. I like this shit. Kids like slime. They like gross boogers and other shit. Like, this is not unusual for kids. So a lot of that is a stretch. I get it. I get what they're saying, but I don't know. I don't know. I think kids like something getting thrown on someone's face or the slime or all that shit. It's not so bad, but yeah, my reaction to this was it's a really well made documentary, really disturbing content. It's a hard watch. It's not a fun watch watching this. Like that's why I like watching a brief second time. I was like, oh god, I really want to like look at this, hear this shit again. And I mean, I get it's fascinating too, just that world of. I mean, I was a young kid who I would have probably liked being at Nickelodeon. So I understand these kids. I think, you know, you watch these things then and you're like, oh, I want to be in that. I want to do that stuff. My background, just my brief background with Nickelodeon was I got cable in 1992. That's when I was able to get cable. I remember it. And this is also, like, kinda crazy, but the reason why it was, like, memorable is because Nickelodeon. That's why. It was, like, as soon as I got Nickelodeon, or cable, I was happy because I had Nickelodeon now. Like, I had Ren and Stimpy. I had, yeah, I mean, I remember Roundhouse because Roundhouse was sort of like an adult well, like a teen show that was, like, kids jumping around doing like breakdancing shit. I remember like being enthralled by that, but kind of thinking like, oh yeah, this is like the older kids. I guess they're all just doing breakdancing, in some weird warehouse with like purple lights. That's what older kids do. That's what I'm thinking. Snick, yeah, shit. Well, I don't remember what Snick was, but I think that was just the Nick at Night. I don't know. Of course, remember Guts. That was I think Guts and Figure It Out were some of my favorite shows, and Double Dare. Like I like those. Which when I think about Nickelodeon, it wasn't really like all that stuff. I don't think really was an issue. I hope not. I mean, I guess it could have been. Are You Afraid of the Dark was great. I know that was filmed in Canada. Those are probably the best of Nickelodeon. Maybe because it was filmed in Canada. Those are filmed separately. I think they shot it for like TV, a kids show there, and that's where that came into play. Nick Arcade was fucking great. I always wanted to be on that. That'd be awesome. And that also was about like having like, not like these TV show kids. That was like, let's have some fucking kids from the audience in and that. And then also, 1993, super remember that era too. So I was bringing this up. Super remember all these things. Legend of the Hidden Temple, big time awesome show. Again, Pete and Pete, it was okay. Wienerville, I mean, I don't know. Pete and Pete, like I liked, but it wasn't like my favorite thing. I know a lot of people liked it. Rocko's Modern Life, I loved. Wienerville was good. Red and Stimpy, of course. We're gonna talk about Salute Your Shorts. Salute Your Shorts was always good. I love that show. Yeah, so there was good things. Nickelodeon at that time was kind of cool. I guess that's the way to put it. Like it was fun at the time. It was fun at the time. I enjoyed it at least. It was what I had to do. Like now I don't have anything to do right now, so I'm on streaming on the YouTube. So I'm doing this now. but then I had Legends of the Hidden Temple, and there was no internet. There was no other things. Like I'm joking about streaming, but like I have, there's an internet stuff you can do. There's tons of things you can do now. You can watch stuff on Netflix. You have the touch of a button. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Back then, you were locked into what you had. And what you had as a kid was Nickelodeon. And to tell you the truth, it was pretty fucking good, man. Like, Nickelodeon was like a fun time. I remember you had this feeling of like, this is like a good time for kids. This is a very good time for kids. I don't think a lot of other generations had like this kids network that was booming. Even now, like I looked it up and just try to see like where's Nickelodeon now. Like they don't even and even like during this period we'll talk about like 2000s, they didn't have this like period for kids that they have now. Like it's just different. Like they play too much into this like preteen, teen, like maybe you're like a freshman, sophomore type thing. Like that kind of wasn't the demographic they were going for at the time. They were going more for a younger, like an 8-year-old, like a 6 to a 12. That was kind of like, and then they kind of like knew you would drop off. Cause I mean, I did. I remember with Nickelodeon, like I didn't watch any Nickelodeon like after middle school or anything. Like I was on to wrestling or on to watching movies or other shit, like or watching even like late night shows were cool. We had Conan, we had Jay Leno, we had Letterman, like I liked all those. Probably more wrestling I was watching, but yeah, just different kind of content. I don't think they kept up with that. I didn't I talked to a coworker, he was like, oh yeah, like those Drake and Josh and iCarly, they were like good for you as a teenager because like it told you like what's cool. And I was like, I would never be, I don't need to be told what's cool. I don't know. I don't need that. I don't need to be told what's cool. I was like, when I heard that, I was like, that's so wrong. You know what's cool. But here is the trailer for Quiet on the Dark Side of Kids TV. And it is dark. It is sad and dark and depressing and all that combined.
In the early 90s, Nickelodeon was kid everything. And you better hope that your house had cable.
Wasn't there to educate you. We were there to have fun, to get slogged, to be entertained.
And this is when Dan Schneider arrives, Nickelodeon's golden boy. He created these shows that were hugely successful for them.
No one had ever really done sketch comedy starring kids for kids.
He launched the careers of child actors who became major stars.
For 20 years, he shaped children's entertainment and culture.
Thank you for being here.
But that marked one of the darkest chapters. Working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship.
Dan's treatment of people on his shows was an open secret.
So my lawyer filed complaints, gender discrimination, hostile work environment, harassment, and it was so devastating.
How safe can any kids be in that environment? There would be even bigger problems down the line with actual pedophiles on set.
These are 3 predators who worked at Nickelodeon, all in a short amount of time.
Hey guys, we're ready for you.
It was a toxic environment. It made me trust people less.
We were there for so many hours. You get comfortable with people until you're not. I had no idea what I was saving my son from. It's a house of horrors.
They find this enormous trove of child pornography.
The officer said we found Ziploc bags, each one with a girl's name on it.
11 charges of child sexual abuse related to a child actor.
It made me wonder who was being hurt.
I've been waiting 17 years for today.
It wasn't dealing with anybody on the shows or anything, right?
It was a child actor.
On one of our shows.
Yes. Have you ever told your story publicly before?
Yeah, crazy situation. Crazy. Yeah, sorry. I watched that on the film threats trailer. So by the way, check out all their stuff. They put some good trailers down. Good channel. Good channel. All right. Film threats are great. Great to have film threat. Yeah. Episode 1, Rising Stars. I got a little outline here, so I could talk about some things here. Rising Stars. Yeah, so this was about Dan Snyder's start. Dan Snyder was the creator of a lot of these Nickelodeon shows you'll know, like All That and Amanda Show, and I guess the one with Ariana Grande, and I think also at the point he was the creative director of all of it, so you could say iCarly, like Sam and Cat, a bunch of shows. Harvey Danger or something. I don't know. Some shows I have no fucking clue. I don't know these. I don't know these things. Drake and Josh, whatever. I don't know these things because I was too old for that. Thankfully too, because I have heard people say like, "Oh, my childhood's ruined." Yeah, I don't think I care about that too much, but yeah, this episode is called "Rising Stars, Rising Questions," and that's for sure. And some of the stuff is all starting with Dan Snyder. Who is Dan Snyder? Well, he started on a sitcom in 1986. He was kind of always playing like the funny fat kid, funny fat guy, deprecating, and he in this documentary they make it pretty clear he wanted to be not known as like the fat guy. He wanted to be like this writer. So he wrote Head of Class, which was a sitcom in the 80s and had 5 seasons. So it's a big deal for anyone in that era. And 86 plus 5, yeah, you're looking at, what is that? 91. And that all lines up with the Nickelodeon stuff. Apparently around the end of this show, he got an offer to do All That. It was going to be a kids, I don't know if it was called All That at the time. It was going to be a kids sitcom, SNL type thing, and that's what became All That. That's what we have for All That. And I have to say, that is it's a memorable show for being like a 90s kid. I do remember it. I liked it, but when I'm watching these clips that they show, like, oh my God, what the fuck did I like? Shows you how stupid kids are. Like, they're just so stupid. Like, I mean, I was stupid. Like, none of these things are funny. Like, I watched all their bits and like didn't laugh, didn't think it was funny. And if I was a parent, I would have totally like left the room. Like, it's funny, like I get why like parents didn't call in to complain about this show because it was so fucking lame that they're like, I don't even want to watch a minute of this. I'll be out. You can watch this dumb shit. Do you think it's funny? There you go. But yeah, they started with a cast of characters. I remember all the original cast for sure. I remember all the later cast too. It's like I remember this show up until I don't know. I'm sure I didn't watch it in 2000, but I remember the majority of this original cast for sure. Like right here, I remember all these people. I remember Lori Beth Dinberg or whatever. I remember that white kid with the fucking bowl cut, Keenan and Kel. You know, let's go right here. I remember this Katrina something. She's in the documentary. I remember her. I remember a lot of these people. I remember yeah, she did Ross Perot. I remember the Ross Perot character that always kind of stuck out. That was actually still I thought it was funny. I saw a clip of it. It's not funny. None of this stuff is funny. This stuff is terrible. You know, then we would later get some other editions that became very popular. But yeah, I totally remember all that crew. It's a throwback. It's a throwback to this era, you know. And I even found an all that wiki fandom site, so this kind of goes through it. They call it the golden era. I mean, I guess it's the golden era. I think it's just the first era. Was it? But the thing is, this is like, was it good? No, no. This is not good. This content sucks. It's like it. You know, I get it. If you like, look at Pixar, they're making kid stuff that also appeals to. Well, I know not so much anymore. Come on, I get it. But the older Pixar, you're making kid stuff that appeals to adults too, all at the same time. You know, they're not doing any creepy shit like all that and Nickelodeon. And there is some creepy shit here. There's some creepy references that come up a lot, especially in the documentary, and you start to kind of question this too. Start to kind of question the network, really, to tell you the truth. I think it's a network. I can't like I know everyone wants to place blame on Dan Snyder, but the network putting this stuff out is pretty bad too, you know. And I know that's what he's placed blame on. He's done this apology tour where he's just saying like, "Hey, the network approved all this shit," and I do agree with him. It should have been someone saying like, "This is inappropriate," you know, some of these things, but they didn't. So there's that. And also, I guess it is part of like, you know, if business is good, you let it ride. So I get it. I get it on all accounts. And a lot of these kind of situations in this story deal with parents that weren't there enough. And, you know, I think I get people being, you know, very brutal towards those parents' roles, but you know, you're not in the scenario, and I think there's some there's a level of manipulation by a lot of these predators that come up later that they're able to, you know, they're able to outsmart these parents, and it's not even just like an outsmart kind of thing. It's just they know what to do to feel like they're very calculated to get people's trust. You know, I saw this in another documentary with the Michael Jackson stuff, and the same kind of thing. It's like they know how to prey off of your weaknesses, they know what you would trust, they know what you don't trust, and they play into it. And that kind of comes up later, but start of this era kind of comes with Dan Snyder and all that. And then of course, what happens later in all that, I'll just scroll down right here up to season 3. What happens here is kind of obvious is Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes becomes the belle of the ball. We hear from Katrina Johnson in the show being like, "Oh, I was like, you know, I was Dan's golden girl for a little bit," and then they found, you know, then they found Amanda Bynes and kind of got kicked out. And I was thinking, like, you know what? That's like, I get how you feel, but in the end, this is a kid show, so kids grow up quick, and you got to kind of replace them. It kind of happens. So it's like, again, that was something I was also like, I don't blame them really. Like, this is supposed to be a kid's show. Yeah, you can kind of throw them out. And then we hear from quote unquote people called this is episode 1, the girls. There were 2 writers that were hired to share a salary, which is offensive. I get it. That is offensive. And I think a lot of it is Hollywood. And I've worked in film internships and other things, and you will do things that are not great. You will work. I've worked for free on multiple accounts where I've gotten a stipend or I didn't even get anything. And you just do it because you say like, okay, I'm getting my foot in the door. I'll do it this and then, but it's not right. And even here in this show, they talk about these two writers, and here is the one here is in this photo, her, and then also this woman here. They were taken in to be female writers that would share a salary, which is offensive. It is not right, especially on a network that this is around the Amanda show time, so this is straight up around the time after Nickelodeon's blowing up, all that's blowing up. There is money to go around. That's like what I was thinking. I was like, you guys have money. You are not treating people right when you actually have money. But that's how it goes. These people that have the money, they're the cheapest bastards too. It's like that's what you say, which is horrible. It is horrible. But so yeah, they had to work um splitting salary, and they had to work with this guy Dan Snyder who would ask a lot of inappropriate things like massages, all that, and calculate it, say it's like a joke, but really when someone says that it's not a joke and that kind of shit, and also doing things that are inappropriate for sure is he would want them to read their jokes or what they were talking about to set up a script in a very inappropriate way. And particularly this woman right here was asked to read a little joke she was writing about high school out to the whole writer's room, but act like you're getting fucked in the ass while doing it. So bend over the desk and act like you're getting fucked in the ass and then read your bit you're saying. Yeah, and she did do it, which is again, what? She's 20 years old. I don't blame anyone. And it sounds like, you don't want to like be the person that like, oh, I can't take a joke. I don't want, like I totally get that. You want to act like you're funny. And in the end though, it's funny, like none of the things they actually were writing were funny. So that's kind of sad too. Like you guys are writing like terrible kids jokes. Like don't act like you're doing like legit comedy. Like I don't know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, you're not doing good stuff. I watched this back. It's horrible. It is not funny. It is not funny at all. I saw one thing that made me laugh. It was called Little Fetus, and it was about the world's youngest rapper, and it was just like a fetus rapping in a womb. And I was like, all right, that's kind of funny. That actually did make me laugh. But that was it. That was it. It made me chuckle. Chuckle. Nothing really like a laugh. But yeah, so this episode kind of documents them working with Dan Snyder and asking inappropriate things, making them do bets where it's like, I bet you $300 that you want to eat this ice cream in 30 minutes. She does, and then he doesn't pay up, and then she makes a joke about that, and he's like, how dare you say I don't pay my bets? How dare you do this? And then eventually, it sounded like these writers had to work 7 days a week. And this girl, she goes to a concert one of the days, and she has friends over one of the days, and that was enough to fire her. So she gets fired. And then the other one stays on. And she's like the only female writer. And she even calls up the Writers Guild, which is it's fine. That's what you can do. That you're totally willing and able to do this stuff. This is not bad. And says, like, hey, are we allowed to share a salary? And they're like, no, absolutely not. So the Writers Guild kind of contacts Nickelodeon and Dan Snyder and says, like, no, you can't do this. And then, of course, Dan Snyder goes right to this lady and says, did you have something to do with this? Because if you did, you're fucking done. And she's like, no, I didn't at all. And she's like, oh, they're like, okay. Well, we're going to bring you on for season 2 because this is just the first season of Amanda show. So season 2, they're going to bring her back and they tell her, we need you to work. What was it? It was something like, I forget what it was. It was something like, we need you to work an X amount of time, but we're only paying you for X amount of time. It was basically, she would have to work 11 weeks for free. And, again, I see this business where a lot of people would say yes because they want to get themselves in the door. And she does say yes. She's like, okay, all right, I guess. And then, she goes in like the first day of season 2 and, there's a bunch of male writers and I get it. I get it. Male writers are funnier. I don't doubt Dan Snyder on that. He expressed to them how he doesn't think women are funny, and there's something to that too. I can't disagree, but there are funny women. So I think it's few and far between, but they do exist. They do exist. I like Chrissy Marr. She's really funny. There are funny women. I can't be a bigot towards that. But yeah, I'm a bigot towards other things, but not towards that. And they go to her and they say, we're gonna pitch all these ideas at the start of the season. All the men go in. They all go in. They pitch their ideas, and then, which is also awkward because you're obviously like leaving her out. Like. But I feel like this was all on purpose. I get this vibe, and I heard it from a director on the set. There was this vibe that tests you, like they're trying to test you to quit. It almost seems like they probably you quit, so then they can replace you without like, having to let someone go. So and that is something that exists in the workplace. They try to get away with what they can. That does exist. So she goes in after all the men pitch their ideas, season 2. She pitches her ideas, and then Dan Snyder says, like, "Didn't you used to work in phone sex?" Just like, and she's like, "No, I didn't do that." And they're like, "No, I could have swore you said that." Like, just obviously meant to demean her in front of everybody, and then they're all probably laughing, and then she leaves and she quits right away. And I don't blame her. That's not a great environment. And funny how this is a show about a female in high school, female comedian in high school, and they didn't have a single female writer after she left. And she goes and she looks into all the law, and B's like, all right. She B's like, I realized my grammar right there, but she B's like, I'm gonna sue this place. So she decides to sue this place because she has some grounds for it. There's some legit grounds for suing here. Legit grounds for suing. And she contacts her old writing partner, the one who she split a salary with, and said, like, hey, can you write, your testimony for what happened during your time here? And she's like, of course, you know. And I kind of don't doubt these people's stories. I don't think they're just trying to rip someone off because in the end, neither of them ever work in the business again. And they kind of even, she even says it. She's like, as soon as I thought about a lawsuit, I knew like, all right, I'm not ever working in this industry again. And it is the truth. Like, especially in the pre-internet times, it's just, and we see this with the predators too. Look this up, like Victor Salvia or whatever. I forget his name. The guy who does Powder and Jeepers Creeper. Convicted fucking pedophile. Went to jail being a pedophile. Comes out of jail. Doesn't move for Disney. It's called Powder. And continues to work. Does the Jeepers Creepers sequels and still involved with this stuff. But because he was arrested for pedophilia in '89 before the internet, their career still exists. So this is a thing, man. This is a total thing. But yeah, so but she finds out, all right, I have a suit here, and she does sue, and there's a settlement. And I don't know the settlement would agree to, but she said like it was worth it because I knew I have to put this out here to be worth it because I know I'm not ever getting anything again from this business. And I looked up into their into their career. They don't have any other credits past this, and it's just it's obvious what happened. And again, maybe they also aren't the best. I don't doubt Dan Snyder saying like, yeah, these guys aren't that good either. There is a truth to that. There's always the story of, story A, story B, and then there's the truth, which is kind of like a combination of both. So I do take everything I've heard for a grain of salt. And a lot of people who have had trauma, like when they think about it in their memory, it like builds. So it's almost like like a telephone, like the game telephone where you tell someone this, and then by the time it gets to the last person, it's totally different. And there's some truth to that. I'm not trying to diminish their story, but there's some truth to the fact that you exaggerate or you traumatize or you look back on it with such negative attributes that it kind of seems worse than it was. And this Dan Snyder guy does feel like a creep, and he does feel like maybe he's a little bit of a pervy guy. I do think they're over exaggerating some of the jokes, some of the quote unquote cum shot jokes. I think it just he's writing. He knows kids like this fucking slime shit. Again, I was a kid during this time. I love that shit. I didn't think about fucking cum shots. And hold on, pouring a shot. And I still don't. It's funny. Like I was thinking about, like I still don't. Like up until this documentary, I never thought about it like that. Like I never fucking had a. I've thought about the sliming in Nickelodeon or other things like even in like recent times, maybe like a couple of years ago, I've thought of it. It's been in my memory. I never thought about like a cum shot, and that's mentioned in this documentary over and over. Like they're like effectively the joke is a cum shot. I'm like, really? Like no, it's a booger joke. It's a kid who's he's got like a booger joke. And speaking of that, I can bring up the thing they're talking about. It's called Nose Boy. Yeah, Nose Boy. I do see what they're saying. I'll say that. I do see what they're saying. It is a weird costume, but Nose Boy is essentially is a kid in all that. Black kid too, which is also it's like, oh, you're gonna make the black kid Nose Boy. So I see what you're doing. Just a little racist, but no one cared about that back then. But look at Nose Boy here. Look at his shoulders. He's got a black penis on his fucking shoulders. Like, yeah, there is something there with that. And then at the end of the episode, you know, at the end of the episode, basically, Nose Boy like sneezes and he's in a courtroom and the boogers go all over the fucking judge. And so they're saying like, oh, it is effectively a cum shot. And I get what they're saying. And then also speaking back at the girls, which Dan Snyder asked for them to be referred to. He's like, "Will you guys mind being called the girls?" I'm like, "Oh no, that's fine." He's like, "Oh, that's good because if you did, I don't like that because I don't like uptight women." And then like even this woman says like that moment I knew like I can't like there's a right and the wrong answer with this guy, and you have to really judge what that is, and that is uncomfortable. You know, like then you realize, like when she said that, I was like, oh, that's a good point. Like you know, like now, like you don't want to be on this guy's bad side, and you want to try not to, because I mean, fuck, they want to keep their job, and this guy's got the higher position, and a lot of people abuse power, so that does happen. But yeah, Nose Boy was all that, and then what came was the Amanda show because Amanda got really big into all that, became his favorite, which was creepy during that whole thing. Again, these kids are only doing 3 hours of school. And during those 3 hours, they would say, like, Amanda wasn't there. And you could see what turned out with Amanda Bynes. So take it for what that is. She didn't turn out too well. You know, she really didn't. So there's that. And yeah, it's just a creepy scenario. You know, like this little girl is writing material with this older guy who's in his 30s. Again, I'm in my 30s. Would I ever write a fucking show with an 8-year-old? Even if I was working at a kids' television, I would say no. 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 I mean, I would go through it with them, be like, here's what I want you to say. Here's what I think would be funny. Like, do you have any insight? And I would take their advice, but I wouldn't like effectively be in the same room with them writing as like a workshop. Like that would not happen. Not happen. But yeah, Amanda show happens and they're working on it. And it goes pretty well because I remember it was really kind of a popular show. I'll show you I will show you the IMDb for this. They actually had Drake Bell kind of shows up for the first time on this, and he is a big part of the story. But the first time he is involved in this is during the Amanda show. Jake and Josh are on this show. I never watched Amanda show. Full disclosure, I always thought Amanda Bynes was super annoying, and I liked all that as a dumb kid. Which I look back and like think like, oh wow, I was like an asshole for even liking this. But I remember thinking like she was too annoying, and all these other kids are annoying too. So like, don't get me wrong, like they're fucking annoying. I thought she was like too annoying. I never liked the Amanda show. I didn't watch that, but I think 99. That's borderline for me too. I would have been, I would have been 12. I would have been not really caring about Nickelodeon too much either. So there is that. And then that's basically where we leave off with this episode. Amanda show is kind of thriving. They start the Kids Choice Awards, and the Kids Choice Awards becomes this big kind of Oscars for kids. And I think the first couple winners are Amanda Bynes, which just makes sense because they're. I'm sure they didn't count votes for kids. It was all probably just what they want to push. Like it's like a pro wrestling thing for that. I'm sure they're just like, we're gonna give the fucking award to whoever we want to push for the next fucking season for get these asshole idiot kids to watch again. I'm sure that was part of it. And then we get into part 2. And part 2 starts on a very serious note. That's definitely into the pedophilia nature of this show. And this is kind of where, like, I didn't mind this show until this episode. This is where it's like, oh god, this is an icky show here. But hidden in plain sight. Yeah. The first bit of this show deals with a PA that was on site. And the PA named, it's right here in these photos here. This is the PA. Jason Handy. Obviously, you can see later this is an arrest photo. But yeah, this is a production assistant. You're basically like honestly, PAs are basically non-paid. They're like a non-paid worker on there. I think he wasn't paid. He might have been, probably wasn't. Probably they usually don't pay these people, but he was basically the guy that would kind of take the kids from set to set. Here you're going to the green room, all this stuff, and then starts off with a story of a mom who had her daughter be one of these extras. She's just an extra in the background of Amanda show, extra there. And I guess there's other kids, and this guy is kind of the PA, kind of wrangling them, and then exchanges emails. And, first he sends this daughter an email, and it's kind of pretty innocent. And she shows the mom, and it's just like, oh, here's what I'm working on. This is that. This girl likes it because this is guys in the industry, and it's like a little insider source, and maybe that'll get me jobs. Or maybe just, I don't know if they think about jobs. Maybe that'll just get me into Nickelodeon because it's so fun and so, the limelight, So I kind of get it. It's playing off that. And then we find out later that the mom of this girl was just saying, like, out of all of a sudden, she sees her daughter, like, gets an email, instantly shuts down the computer and runs to her room. And the mom's like, what the fuck did you see? What the fuck happened, And she shows her an email where this guy sent her a picture, says, I'm thinking of you. And I just want to know how much I'm thinking of you. And it's him naked, jerking off. And this is where this is like where I big time blame the parents, because she says, like, that's when I knew, like, I can't bring this girl around here at all, this or that. But no. That's when you call the police. Like, I think that's obvious. You call the police at that moment. Because to me, I wouldn't even be like, I would be happy that my daughter wasn't like around this motherfucker, but there are still kids that are around this young guy, during the week. I would think, like, all right, this needs to get fucking told because this guy's a predator. This guy's a predator. This guy's a sick fuck. You call the cops. But she said, I knew I couldn't call the cops because I didn't want to be that parent that made it an issue. And it's like, whoa, Jesus, that's so wrong. So wrong. And then also they kind of talk about Amanda show. At this time, the Amanda show is kind of floundering because she's starting to get older. She's starting to get older, and she kind of wants to not be that kid actress. So she starts to do a teen show. And remember, she did some movies and some really shitty movies. And then she starts to do a teen show called What About You or something like that. And on WB, because remember WB was that's like where that's like the shit that's like the shit version of Nickelodeon for the teens. So did some shitty show, and Dan Snyder was attached to it, and he was basically ousted because they were like, this guy's a fucking control freak, all this shit. And Yeah, we know what happened with Amanda Bynes because I can go through this here. I got this article. Here you go. You see her as an early kid here. This is what got her all that bit. Her stand-up set at the Laugh Factory. They talk about that in the show. She had all of that. Kind of became a standout, and then she got the Amanda Show because she basically was talking to this guy Dan Snyder the whole time. Got that. Then we started to see her taking her talents to the movies, like Big Fat Liar, which was an awful movie. And then she got into the show on WB called What a Girl Wants. And that was produced by Dan Snyder and the guy from Friends, which are two awful people because anyone who produced Friends sucks. Because Friends sucks. You just got to realize that Friends is bad. People like to pretend Friends is good. And that's fucking horrible. I want to fucking slap them across the face.
What is it? What's wrong, sister?
Oh yeah, it's always good. Always like that little slap there. Yeah. She didn't really work out in this, and then she quit acting. And that's sort of where we've seen the downward spot. I think most people of like the generation who knows Amanda Bynes knows the story. This isn't something shocking. She had legal troubles. I think she got arrested with it. Yeah, she's got a DUI. I know there was something with weed. She got arrested on that. She had some bizarre rants. She started to look fucking crazy. Psychiatrist, it's just a crazy nutcase, she had to be placed under conservatorship, which is like Britney Spears, where it's like her parents need to take control of her life because of that. And, that plays into the story. A big thing that happened around the time of when she started to go to WB and that show was that she wanted to get that emancipation from her parents. And she tried to, and Dan Snyder supported her in this and against her parents, and she failed. It actually didn't happen. She did not get emancipation. So complete backfire. And then her parents were like, who's this fucking asshole Dan Snyder who's just like against us? So it like kind of burned the bridge of her parents. And then, and as you see, they got conservatorship over her. So they're controlling her funds and all that shit. And it seems rightfully so because the girl's a fucking nutcase, and again, who knows how many NDAs she's signed. I'm sure her story can't even come out. That's the sad part about this. I bet you her story, if there is one, maybe she's got an inappropriate relationship with Dan Snyder. That's alleged. There's nothing proven on that, but seems like that could be the case. But I don't think we'll ever hear because I'm sure there's NDAs at the shit for this. I'm sure she's been paid off. I'm sure there's settlements, backdoor settlements. Like, don't ever say anything about this. And here's $100 million. Here we go. Briefly return to the spotlight, and then kind of add some more engagements. Also, kind of looks like, like a Juno millennial freak right there. Wigs. She's wearing wigs and sunglasses, a fat face because she's doing cocaine. More cocaine, face tattoo. Not a good sign. She's at that, like, I'm gonna date a black guy era. She's, like, so close to that. I'm surprised she's engaged to this guy. She's at that, I'm gonna date, like, an older 50s black football player. Here you go. She's looking like Grimes. Grimes in general. She's got a Dare shirt with blood all over it. That's always classy, especially being a child actor. Yeah, here you go. Looking like you're living in Portland full time. Not a good look. That was in Connecticut. Oh, sad. Okay. Sad to be out there doing that. But yeah, that is where that ended. And then what came was an All That reboot. This was something I didn't know until the show. I didn't know they rebooted the show because at this point, 2002, I was I was a sophomore in high school. I was not watching Nickelodeon, and I would totally admit if I was watching Nickelodeon as a sophomore. I'm not trying to fuck with that. I have no clue who these people are. I saw the cast and I was like, and even when they were talking like in this documentary, I was like, I don't know who these people are. Like I know a lot of the original cast. I don't know these people. But it sounds like they had a kind of a hard time, you know. They rebooted the show, and I mean, here's a lot of the cast. We hear from this kid a lot. I think I've seen the funny thing is the only people out of this that I kind of recognize was him, and then Britney Spears' sister on the right. I remember of her. I can't say I knew her, but yeah. And they tried to do obviously a diverse cast, which was it was kind of lobbed in a softball up to Dan Snyder, where like, oh, you've always played into diversity. You've always played into diversity. Well, you hear from these two guys, these two people here, the black people here. They said how they'd go on set and they would count the black people, which I guess is something when you're black, which is something I was thinking about. Like that is something that I like. I am not a liberal person or a conservative person, but when I understand what they're saying, like you go to a place and you kind of count the black people to be like, how many people are like me, and they even said it's like there was two. It was him and her, and then maybe another two if it was like their parents on set. So I get it. You're dealing with an all white production crew, and hopefully things have changed. And at the same time, I'm almost like, hopefully, maybe not. To me, it's all about just if there's the best people, and if the best people weren't that, then yeah, I don't know. That's complicated. It's complicated. I understand their opinion though. So that was the start of season 7 and 8 for Nickelodeon, and we see what happens with one of the kids here. This was Little Fetus. He had the Little Fetus part. I should find the Little Fetus bit because that was kind of funny. Little Fetus. Here you go. I'll play this Little Fetus bit. I think this was the only thing that I kind of laughed at, and it was like a slight chuckle. Slight chuckle because this kid kind of comes into play. This guy who plays this actor right here in the middle, he comes into play a lot with the little headband on his head. He's a big part of the documentary as far as a talking head. But yeah, here's Little Fetus. This is a Little Fetus bit. Take it for what you will. I thought it was funny.
It's the first track of my new CD entitled Little Fetus, free live. You want to sing it? I would love to. Yo, kick it. Say yo, 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 embryo. Yo, 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 embryo. Little fetus in the womb from belly to jelly. I'm smooth like peanut butter and I'm sweeter than jelly. Say yo, 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 embryo. Yo, 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 embryo. Little fetus needs cash and knock out the work, so buy my CD. Cause I get 10%. Say yo, 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 embryo. Yo, 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 embryo.
Yeah, you know what? When I'm watching the clip, it is not funny. No, so oh yeah, not super funny. Not super funny. But I'm not surprised. That's this fucking era of Nickelodeon. I mean, I realize like all this shit sucks. Like this shit. Like if I was an adult, I would leave the room like instantly. I'd be like, all right, you can watch this shit. Go for it. And I guess I would be part of those parents that are the problem too, because I'd be like, I don't want to fucking watch what you're watching. This is dumb. That was what's nice about like when you watch Wall-E or some good Pixar. They actually have content that's like not terrible for a parent. This is content that's terrible for a parent. I was realizing that. It's like I would never want to watch this. But back to that, on set right here is Jason Handy. They have a PA assistant, and they all describe him as like there's one black girl, which is, I kind of found it offensive. It's funny how people make fun of white people, but I was like, yeah, I didn't mind it because the guy is like a creep. But she's like, yeah, there's this guy. He's like a basic white guy from Nebraska, being like, hey, now we're gonna take you to to the set. we're gonna. You guys want like a salad or something, or that kind of thing. It's time for you guys to go on set. I'll talk to the parents. So and then she did Bible study with this guy during the set, and then we come to find out this is the guy who was talking to that girl, sending her pictures of him naked, jacking off, and extras. We come to find out that he got tipped off by the law. There's a tip off, but to I guess LAPD, about this guy. And then they raid his house, and they come to find out this is a Nickelodeon employee that was there for like a couple of years, which is also telling. Like he's there as a PA, not getting really paid. That's fucking telling. Like I get it if you're like doing it for like a couple months or a couple weeks. I mean, film contracts are weird. Like when you work on a TV show, even like writers on TV shows, they have like a contract where they're working only a few weeks because they just like all that shit gets done and then they're done. You make these little tiny LLCs that you have a company and then you're working on it and then you're done. And the smart thing to do is while you're working on it, you're getting to the next thing. You're trying to figure out, all right, I'm going to join this next thing. So it's like if you're good or even if you're not good, but it just if you're able to network and get to the next project, it's always like you're from project to project. It's a project to project basis. It's a gig economy. But this guy, PA, on here the whole time, creepy, not getting paid. We come to find out that he got a tip off to the FBI on him, and he even wrote in his own journal, I'm a pervert, a full blown pedophile. Let's just see. Here you go. Authorities found 10,000 child porn photos and belonging to Jason Handy. This is a PA on Nickelodeon. Evidence of him with 2 kids and a confession from him admitting to be a pedophile. He actually even admitted that I'm full blown pedophile and I suffer. I hate that I actually had to say that on there. I suffer on a daily basis with the question that how can I find a victim to rape if I must? So it's like even and I also question like who would write even if you felt this way, who would write this down? Like, who's like, I'm going to write this down. That's like fucking crazy. It's so incriminating. Yeah. And there was certain people. I mean, I'll say this about the scenario with this guy. And, this is like the thing that about this that I'm like, oh God, thank God. The only thing that seemed to happen with this guy that was, I mean, maybe there's more that we don't know. But, he sent the naked photo of him jacking off to a 11-year-old girl, which again is bad, but at least it's just a photo. And then there's another person that he took it a little farther with him. He kissed her, but at least he didn't rape her. So I'm just happy of the victims in this situation that it wasn't as horrible as it could have been. That is a blessing. And then throughout this whole time, we heard in this episode about the editors on set. Editors on set that were, overworked, which sounds like a Dan Snyder kind of thing. Overworked, underpaid. She would have to go in at 8 in the morning till 12 p.m., which sounds like nuts. I mean, that's a long fucking day. Long day. And then even to the fact where she had a health issue on time where she had to get to the hospital, and then they're saying like, well, who's going to do the show? We need to do the show. And she's even saying like, as she's getting gurneyed off, like, oh, I can do it. I'll be back in like a minute or something. Like just this commitment, this overcommitment to this, honestly, asinine child show. Most of them. It's like, did you really need to make this asinine child show such a fucking big deal? And the answer is no. Answer is no. Yeah, let me look through these photos here because this is going to show some of the good burger stuff. That kind of comes into play. Yeah, this guy comes into play right now. All right, so only a few months after the convicted pedophile comes out, that there was another pedophile on the set that also got arrested, and that is Brian Peck, this guy right here on the right. He was effectively known as. Let me see if I get this. He was effectively known as Pickle Boy on the set. He had a reoccurring role on all that as Pickle Boy. And yeah, I'm going to show you a clip of what Pickle Boy would do. He always had pickles out. It was very sexual innuendo. Yeah, here's Pickle Boy. Here's Pickle Boy on set and his bit. It is astounding. Here's Pickle Boy.
Romano! Anyone? Hate it in here. Never been this hungry. I gotta get something to eat. Hello? Anyone? A pickle. Thank you.
Yeah, a pickle straight through a fucking glory hole.
Oh, I don't know who you are, but this pickle is the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's good pickle.
I mean, it's just weird because it's just like you think about this and you're like, this is not funny, and for an adult, and this completely goes over anyone who's a kid who doesn't understand this stuff. Where it's like, are they just like, it's funny because it's a pickle? Is that funny? They're not. Pickles aren't really that funny.
So what are we doing here?
You don't really appreciate pickles until you're stuck in a bathroom. Come on.
Yeah, that's kind of offensive too. Yeah. Everybody fucking loves Ray. Everybody loves that motherfucker Ray. But even we're hearing about the cast right here. The cast of this fucking, all that show would talk about Brian Peck, Pickle Boy, and they would say that again, he was very charismatic. He was very charismatic to all the parents. This guy was actually talking about it a lot. He explained his story that at one point they get invited over to, I guess, a barbecue or a party or something at this guy, Brian Peck, Pickle Boy's house. And so they go there and he's like, all right, it's kind of weird. It's kind of cool. He's like, it was cool because, like, he's got this like vintage comic book room and toys. And then his whole garage is like a Planet of the Apes memorabilia. And he's like, that's pretty cool. But then he notices that in the corner of this room, the Planet of the Apes room, is this painting of a clown. And he's like, what the fuck is this? And he even goes to Brian Peck and says, like, what's the painting of the clown? Like, it doesn't really make sense with this vibe of the room. And he's like, and then he gets super excited, which is also creepy and telling and terrifying. He says, oh, he gets so excited, but you like this painting, you like this painting. He spins it around and it says, to your best friend and happy birthday from your favorite clown, John Wayne Gacy. I'm paraphrasing. But basically he had a John Wayne Gacy self-portrait that was painted in prison while John Wayne Gacy was in prison, which this is the weirdest thing. This murder memorabilia thing, a big thing. Creepy. And there are people who like these things that aren't creepy, but I get it. This is a red fucking flag. This guy is weird. Weird guy. And he relates to another character because we come to find out that he's the next pedophile on set. And they come to these kids and say, hey, this guy, Brian Peck, he's not going to work here anymore. And we want to talk to you. And what they do is they have a table read, which is essentially where they read the script all at a table. They're reading the next script for the next day, whatever, next week. A table read. You're reading the script without rehearsing it. It's basically just reading at a table, and you kind of do a little bit of acting, but slightly. But as they're there, all the kids from all that, there's also all these lawyers there. There's all these lawyers in the room. And they eventually say, like, we want all the parents to leave, which is crazy. And I'll get into it why I think it's crazy, but they eventually say like, "Hey, did anyone here have any issues with Brian Peck? Because if you did, now is the time to speak up." These are legal lawyers for Nickelodeon. They're basically trying to assess their ass. They're trying to be like, "Are we fucked?" They want to see that, and also at the same time, they did it to a group of kids without their parents there. And you're amongst all these people. Do you think anyone who was actually, if they had an issue with this guy, would they actually say it amongst the crowd? Like what you should have done is had these people go one by one, actor by actor, with their parents, and ask them there in like a smaller setting that maybe you can actually find out. But so essentially, they wanted to cover their ass because no one said anything, and they knew no one would say anything because you're saying it to a fucking group of 10 people. No one's gonna say anything. Not in that situation. And I only hope that no one in that room had anything happen to them, and I really hope that because this guy, when you hear about the next episode of the story, he is a fucking predator, total predator, pickle boy, giving glory hole pickles to Ray Romano, but that's innocent compared to what happens because what happens is something that involves Drake Bell. Because at the end of this series, they're like, we know this guy's arrested. Who was it? Who was this guy? Who's the guy? Who's everyone they're talking about? They start to kind of question, like, who is this guy? Who's he with? Who is the victim? And at the time, there's the Amanda show, which has Josh Bell and Drake, whatever, Josh something and Drake Bell, and they're being kind of talked up to set up for their own show, which would become Drake and Josh. And their dialogue coach is Brian Peck. So that is where we left off. At the end of this episode, it was like, who's the guy? Who's the guy? And then at the end of this episode, Drake Bell kind of comes out and sits in a chair. And that's sort of where you see the end of this episode. And it was a very impactful ending because you're like, all right, shit, this is going to go some bad places and terrible shit. What happens next is here's Brian Peck's IMDb. Here's Brian Peck. He was a dialogue coach for Leonardo DiCaprio. A lot of his credits aren't credited because, when you're doing these small things on set, you often don't get credit for it. He even could still be on set in places. I know they claim he's not worked on stuff since the arrest, but we know he actually has. That's the fucked up part. After this whole arrest of being a pedophile, he went to jail briefly, which is questionable with our law today. And then he got out and he worked for Disney. He worked for The Sweet Life and Zack and Cody, which is those two kids from Big Daddy. He worked for young boys on Disney Channel on the show. That's a problem. That's a big problem right there. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're gay, you're in Hollywood. No. That's a problem. This is convicted pedophile. Went to jail, proven, admitted to fault, and you're going to give him a job. That is offensive. Highly offensive. And he prayed into it. We'll talk about it here because we'll talk about the next episode here. The next episode is episode 3. It's called The Darkest Secret. This is the story basically of Drake Bell with Brian Peck. And this was probably the hardest thing to watch of the whole documentary because it's basically him recanting being set up by a predator and then acted on upon by a predator. So it's not a fun thing. And basically Drake Bell, child actor. I remember him in Seinfeld. I think he's playing some video. He's playing. It's in the show, but he's playing like a arcade game, and then George Costanza wants in on the arcade game, kind of pushes him out, And I also remember him. This is a big part. I do remember him, like Jerry Maguire. In beginning scene, there's like a hockey player. It's a client of Jerry Maguire's gets hurt, and Jerry Maguire says to this kid, like, "Your kid's like," he says, like, "Your dad's tough. Your dad's tough. He'll be out of here in no time." And then like the kid says, like, "Fuck you," and then gives him the finger. And we learned in this documentary that he actually was such kind of like a straight laced kid. He couldn't even give him the finger. He gave him the ring finger. And if you look, apparently, if you look close enough, you'll see it wasn't even the middle finger. But whatever. Yeah, he started off in these small roles, and the whole goal was like, this kid wants to get on a television show. He wants to be a series regular. He wants to get consistent work so that he's not, just working on, the weekends or nights or something like that, like off school. He wants to make this his thing. He wants to have that as this thing. And he has a dad who's, one of the better parents in the show. That's the part that I will say. It's like the dad was very much like anywhere this kid went, I wanted to be within eye distance, and that was his major point. And Drake Bell eventually gets a part on the Amanda show. So he gets part on the Amanda show, and on the Amanda show, there is Brian Peck. And Brian Peck is a dialogue coach. He's worked with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's worked with other child actors. He's an industry expert. He's like a little kid. He's like what they call like, oh, he's just a big kid. That's a big indicator, by the way, to watch out for someone when they're like, oh, he's just a big kid. Yeah, that means watch out for that guy. That's the code word for that. That means only let your kid around that within fucking eyesight. So, and that's what this dad tried to do. But as we've seen in this documentary, like any parents that try to make themselves like involved, they come off as the problem. And be it being around a predator or be it just, they want to have more labor laws or all that shit. Like that is what Amanda Bynes was trying to do. She wanted to get emancipation. And the big reason for that is if you get calculated termed as an adult by court, you can work the hours of an adult. You don't have to deal with the child labor laws. So someone like Dan Snyder or someone a producer at Nickelodeon, they'd fucking love that because now they're like, this kid can work a fucking full day. We don't care. And that's another thing. It's like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but then that means the producer doesn't have to make a schedule around them, make this. Like, we got to only work with this kid for this days. We got to make sure that. It's like, it is an issue. I get it. But that is also why these kids grow up so fast. I've realized that. Like when I was watching this, you're working with adults. You actually start to feel like an adult. And then again, these adults are your coworkers. And then the vice versa. These adults have children coworkers. They start to think of them as adults. Like I remember hearing about Drew Barrymore in Hollywood being on coke and drunk at a Hollywood party at 8 years old. And no one at that party had an issue with it because this is my coworker, which is fucking crazy. Because they start to think like, oh, it's just an adult. I know her. She works on set just like I work on set. They start to relate their personal perspective with a kid and vice versa. And that's like fucking crazy. And that's sort of like, I think the big takeaway of this is a sad fact that these kids are working too. It's another thing. It's like, would you really want to be working during your childhood? Like, fuck. I mean, I know it sounds cool. I mean, even as a kid, when I was a kid, I would have loved to be on Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon was so cool at the time. And I think all these kids who got into this, they had the same vibe and, didn't work out. Or there was tragedy along, but this whole thing, Drake Bell has his dad be his manager, and basically he sees this guy, this dialogue coach, Brian Peck, start to kind of touch his son a little inappropriately. He'll come into the dressing room and like he'll try to put on his clothes, and he's like, wait. My son can put that on fine. You don't need to do that. Or like he's kind of touching his arm, and then he finds clips where he's doing it to Leonardo DiCaprio. He's doing it to anyone he's worked with. He's touching them inappropriately. And so he goes to the production assistants and the production, consultants and says, this guy's kind of weird. This guy's like touching my son, and they say like, oh, I don't think but this guy, Brian Peck, he's gay. You're probably just homophobic. You're probably just, overreacting. This guy's just a touchy-feely. He's a gay guy. That's what gay guys do. Like, which is also offensive probably to gay guys. Like, I'll say that. Like, that's also offensive, saying like, "Oh, he's just touchy-feely because he's gay." That's kinda crazy too. Like, that's kinda crazy. But what eventually starts happening is, this Brian Peck starts to drive a wedge between the son and the dad. And this is where things get murky morality-wise, because at this point, this guy, Drake Bell, is about 15, 16. And I do have to say, at that age in life, you should know better as a person. So, like, I'm not trying to victim shame. Sounds like I am. But shit, you should know better. You should know better. And he starts to buy into Brian Peck stuff, and he's like, I don't want to have my dad on set because he's ruining my career, and they're kind of playing into that. And even this guy, Brian Peck, is kind of calling the mom up, who's like, it's a divorced parent, so he's getting her sympathy. And eventually, what happens is the Drake guy kind of goes to the dad and says, like, I don't want you as my manager anymore. And the dad has to kind of relinquish everything over to the mother, which essentially means Brian Peck is going to be the manager because she's not about to do this driving and all this shit. But the dad kind of goes to her and say, like, hey, don't ever let Drake alone with this guy. And then meanwhile, what happens is basically she does the opposite. She lets him take him to auditions. They live in a different county in LA, and he's staying over this guy's house because it's quote unquote closer to the studios the next morning. And meanwhile they're making Drake and Josh, so it's in development, but I don't think it kind of like took off. And then what happens is kind of like the big moment essentially, and this is he wakes up one morning at this guy's house, and this guy, Brian Peck, is doing unspeakable things to him. And then he says how that just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And I do have to say, like, I don't want to victim blame, but how do you let things get worse? As soon as it happened the first time to me, I'd be like, I mean, maybe I'm just more intelligent than this guy, or less, I don't know, less vulnerable. I don't know. And I don't blame him, but I would think as soon as something happened to me, I would fucking say something instantly. I think it sounds like he woke up to this guy like fondling him, in his genitalia. And then it goes so far as this kid is getting like fucking raped, like in the morning, getting raped, fucked in the ass, something like that, which is crazy. But the fact that you let it go from I'm just getting fondled to that is, I really have to say, there's some personal responsibility. This kid is 15, 16. That is not like an 8-year-old. That is enough to know, like, this is wrong. But I get it. This guy is a predator. I'm not downplaying that. This guy's a fucking predator and a piece of shit. And, he's grooming him the whole time. Even Drake Bell said, I loved Hollywood. I loved all these old stories. And, I'd hear from this guy, Brian Peck, like all these old stories. He's like a walking history book. And he even said, like, looking back, it just looks like he might even brushed up on these things just to fucking, get me into him, or get me into, trying to hang around him or hearing his stories. That was like his major point was, I'm going to relate to you by the things you like, which is kind of, it's creepy. It's creepy. And then this, so it's happening over and over. And, basically this is the crazy part about this, and his mom wasn't very keen on this. And I know he said, like, everyone's blaming my mom for not doing enough, but he kind of said, like, this guy was very charming to all the parents. Everyone trusted this guy, and that kind of happens. And everyone trusts this, and I guess he felt like it was a secret I couldn't tell. Again, I kind of question that. Like, I mean, that's also a thing. It's like this guy probably thought, like, all right, this kid is gay. I can do this, and it won't be a big issue. If you really think about it, he's 15, 16 years old. He is not, like, that far under the age of consent. But I'm not victim blaming. Like it is terrifying. I mean, it seems like this kid didn't want it, but I don't know why he didn't express that or didn't like instantly call the cops, that kind of thing. But basically, he bottles it up. And, that also could be something like, there's something psychological with that too. So I don't blame Drake Bell whatsoever. I don't blame him at all. I just was just thinking about it, and then he's doing Drake and Josh, and even like Brian Peck is trying to get himself as I want to be the dad on Drake and Josh. This is during like the pilot, and they're like, absolutely no. And at this time, Drake Bell is older. He's got a girlfriend, and he's said how he's spending so much time at this girl's house because it's like the one place he actually feels safe at. And meanwhile, he's there at his girlfriend's house, and his phone starts getting blown up. It starts ring, 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 constant ring, and then it's Brian Peck. It's this dialogue coach, effectively a manager to him, and then he's ringing up the girlfriend's house. He's calling the girlfriend's house, and then the mom of his girlfriend says, "What the fuck's going on? This like late 40s guy should not be." Here's the thing. It sounded like when he's calling, it sounded like an ex-girlfriend or like a jealous girlfriend who's calling you nonstop. It's like that kind of thing. And the mom says, like, what's going on? A late 40s guy should not be calling you nonstop like this at my fucking, daughter's house. This is like not his territory to do. What's going on? You need to talk to someone. And I have to say, like, this woman is like the hero of the show. I was thinking about it. Like, she is effectively the hero because she gets Drake to go to her psychologist, and that's essentially where all this comes out. He eventually reveals this all to the mom, and then they set up the arrest. And that was kind of a cool part because it was like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I kind of like that. They set up this Brian Peck guy. Like on the phone, he said like, oh, they got these tape recordings and they were kind of like, I had to call through a black phone. And basically I called him up and he admitted to everything. Yeah. I mean, it sounded like he admitted to everything like on the spot. So that was the easy part. At least he admitted to it on the spot. He even asked Drake Bell multiple times, like, am I being recorded? Which is kind of weird because it's just, I don't know. I guess it's the guilt of the situation and it's fucking horrible. I mean, he even says, Drake Bell, it's like, picture the worst thing that someone could do to someone, and that got happened to me. So, not a pretty situation. Pretty bad. Here in 2003, August 20th, right here, this is news article from the LAPD. Questionable place, but hey. The Hollywood acting and dialogue coach was arrested for lewd acts with a child. That's essentially what happened. And there was evidence of it. And so that is essentially where, the third episode kind of ends. That's essentially where it ends. And even Drake Bell said at this point, people were calling, people were calling him up because they were like, "Do you hear about this guy Brian? Because he's on all these shows. He's arrested. He's done. I wonder who it is." And he didn't want to admit that it was him. I think the only one who knew it was him was Dan Snyder, which is kind of like a plus side of this guy, Dan Snyder. He's the only one that seems to reach out to this kid and said, like, I don't think you need to ever talk about this. For your own sake, I'm here for you. Like, that's one thing where the Dan Snyder, like, he's a kind of a pervy guy, but doesn't seem to be pervy against like the male teen actors. And maybe I'm biased and thinking that's not creepy, but at least I'll give him that plus. At least I'll give him this plus. And then episode 4, it starts off with the court cases of these things. Starts off with the course. It's called Too Close to the Sun. This is all the court cases that are going on now against, Brian Peck versus the plaintiff versus John Doe at the time, but was Drake Bell. And that never came out. It's funny. I'm surprised this never came out, even with the people that were in the audience. That's the thing is then here's this People magazine article. Where's Brian Peck now? I mean, it's sad that it's sad that like you can do these horrific acts of pedophilia and you're out basically pretty quick. You know, it's not like a big deal. No, that's also what I wonder. Like, are these fucking judges pedophiles, and that's why they don't mind? Yeah, Peck is he's in Return of the Living Dead. That's on his IMDb for sure. Dialogue coach, which again, a dialogue coach is a valuable thing. So especially for kids, like he's teaching them how to deliver the line, maybe for comedy, maybe for drama, maybe for whatever situation. It's an important role, especially for kids. I get his role. I think he obviously is a douchebag. He worked on things with Shia LaBeouf, Amanda Bynes, and then in 2003 he was arrested for 11 accounts of lewd acts with a minor, which was what we turned out to be Drake Bell. Um, yeah, the minor's family reported that he was a minor. That's the thing. It's like I will say, I get it. He's 16 years old, and that's borderline consent. And maybe Drake Bell is a little gay or something. Like I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to act on it. Maybe it is just completely in a predator situation. But I feel like if it was me, and I woke up to something happening to me and my genitalia by an adult male, I would instantly be out of there. I don't care if I had to fucking walk home. No, I'd be out. Like, Drake Bell was like, "What was I gonna do? Like, just go out on the curb and have my mom wait for me and pick me up?" I was like, "Fuck yeah! Why the fuck not?" That's what I was thinking. I was like, "Are you serious? Why not call the cops right there and they would fucking give you home? Why not call your dad? Why not call your mom? Like, what the fuck?" I was thinking, like, yeah, no, that's completely grounds to run the fuck out of that house. So I question a lot of things where it's like, there's your truth, their truth, and then the real truth. And yeah, there's some weird stuff to this where maybe this guy Drake wasn't exactly against it as much as he's claiming now. Who knows? I don't wanna victim shame him. This was horrible, but I do question, like, he's 16 years old. You should know better. Like I know this is probably intimidating and terrifying, but Jesus, you should know better. You should know that this is wrong. Like obviously you did because he talks about how he had issues later and like, immediately later, like substance, drug alcohol abuse, like he had issues. You should know that then at the fucking time. I'm sorry, you should. But yeah, he set him up for this, and eventually it goes to court. That's the big thing because no one knows who it is. No one knows who it is. No one knows who's the person he's talking about, and it goes to court. And that's what this episode 4, is basically about. There's 5 episodes in this, and it is a hard watch. It's hard to get to all 5. Too close to for the sun here. Basically, it's about the court case and other things too, but Drake Bell kind of goes on to say, he's at court. He's at court and he looks over at. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at our Carly thing here. He's at court and he looks over at the other side just to see like their audience, and he says their whole side's filled. Every single side behind Brian Peck is filled. The only one on his side is his mom, his brother, and him. 3 people on his side. The other side is packed, and it's packed with celebrities, Disney stars, people who are promoting this guy, and even wrote letters for him. That's the crazy part. The people I'm listing here in a second here, they all wrote letters for Brian Peck, and I do have to say, I don't think they knew the details of the situation. They probably were told a false truth, but you gotta look at these people and be like, "That's fucking creepy and weird." And some of these people have actually, like, refuted, like, "I should have never said that." Will Friedle said that, but even, Drake Bell said, "I was on set with Will Friedle in a movie, I think it was a Spider-Man movie," and he's like, "He didn't say a thing to me. Never said a thing about it." So, you question if they're just saying that for a PR kind of thing. But yeah, Kimmy Robinson, here's her from Twin Peaks, from um, the Babysitters Club kind of thing or whatever. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. She's in multiple things. She's was popular during the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah. Joanna Kearns, I don't know her. James Marston and Alan Thicke. Obviously everyone knows Alan Thicke. James Marston, pretty big star. Cyclops and X-Men, which is questionable people behind that too. The Boy Meets World guys, Will Friedle and Ryder Strong, wrote letters in support. And again, I don't know how much they knew or not. This guy, Taron Killiam, who is terribly funny and is in SNL. So out of all these people, I would say like completely fuck him. So fuck him. Fuck him. He's not funny and he's supporting a pedophile. Yeah, fuck him. Fuck him. Yeah, thank God for this girlfriend's mom. But yeah, basically, he had all these people on this other side for the pedophile, Brian Peck, and he just had him. He just had just as my brother. And he said, the one thing I remember the most is going up to testify and saying to these people, I'll always remember the people that are on his side. That kind of thing. Like I'll always remember that you got, and even some of these people have come forward and said like they didn't know the real details. That Will Friedle from Boy Meets World has said it's one of the worst feelings I ever had because I knew I was on the wrong side. And again, he wrote a letter and probably didn't know the whole details, and that's terrible. Probably for the most part, that's all of them. But they come off looking like fucking scumbags. Like you look like a fucking piece of shit. Fucking piece of shit. Cho jeans. You look like a fucking, like size 54 waist. Like just, total Cho jeans.
Said no gag gifts, and Julie gave me Cho jeans, and I almost killed myself.
What are Cho jeans?
Chode jeans. They're jeans for a chode. Size 54 waist, 10-inch legs, fucking junk. Julie gave them to me.
It was just a joke.
I almost killed myself, Julie.
Russell.
Yeah, I would almost kill myself with all that. I'm actually honestly when I hear about that Drake Bell guy, I'm like I'm kind of like surprised he hasn't like acted upon that. I know he's got issues, so it's crazy. I mean, I would feel terrible. After all this shit, Disney didn't get any unpopular, got more popular. This was during the era. I mean, all right, so this is something I'll break down. I remember being a kid liking Nickelodeon, and I would watch these shows, and they were like 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, that age. And then I remember I didn't watch these shows. I got to preface, I'd never seen Drake and Josh, never seen Ariana Grande in anything. I only know of the name. I don't think I've even seen her sing. I don't know about her, but like I would remember knowing about. I mean, I knew pop culture. I still do. I knew of Drake and Josh. I knew of these shows, and there were always these shows that were like a very sexualized preteen or teen girl characters. It's like it's a high school show. It's like I remember looking like this wasn't the show I saw. I used to see like 8-year-olds getting slimed, like playing figure it out. Like I didn't watch some like, and this is the thing. I mean, they know it. I know it. I'm not attracted to these girls, but like these are generally good looking girls at a young age and they know it. That's the creepy part. They know what they're fucking doing. And again, I was at the age too when some of this was coming out, like Lizzie McGuire. Generally crazy attracted to Lizzie McGuire. Even Stevens, I was attracted to Ren Stevens, like easily. And these girls were like probably my age or a little bit older. So again, not like a creepy thing, but like they're trying to appeal to this male gaze, which is strange. And they talk about in this show how there's two types of women actors at this young age. There's the really innocent, Olsen twins, Shirley Temple, that kind of thing, or kind of like this sexualized male fantasy that I mean, appeals to a younger audience of boys. Like, it's the truth. I mean, 13-year-old boy is gonna like Ariana Grande. And then the creepy part is you have these older executives at this company that are casting her for that reason. Like, they know what they're doing. They know this is like a sex symbol for preteens, which is an underage category. So, fucking crazy. And then again, at the same time, by the way, there was another pedo arrest on Nickelodeon set. This is episode 4. They talk about it. I forgot the details. It was kind of washed over. I think it was a guy who was caught kissing a girl, like a young 7-year-old or something, and did get charged for it. Thank God. So 3 charges of that. I don't know if it was like they were completely connected to shows. I don't know the details. They kind of brushed over that in the show. It was just kind of mentioned. But yeah, they're definitely mentioning these sexualizations of these preteens, and it seems to be the case. And it seems to be Dan Snyder is behind this. Here is a clip of some of this. It's yeah. Here you go.
Whole big toe in your. Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out. Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty.
Yeah, I know a lot of these things are like, oh, it's just a joke. This one's fucking creepy. This is a girl on a bed with a very scantily clothed outfit, pouring water on herself upside down. I mean, I'm an adult. I've seen pornographic videos in this scenario. I know what they're trying to do. Well experienced, and I know what they're trying to do here. Almost can see up this girl's skirt, or I'm sorry, shirt. Like this is obvious what they're trying to do here. It's undeniable. It's like some of these other ones are like, oh, it's goofy comedy. They're like just playing with slime. This one's fucking weird. She's fucking very, like give her a fucking sweatshirt, and then I would feel a little bit better about this.
It's not possible. This has been me in a video. Come on, give up the juice. Have you ever tried to get your whole
Give up the juice.
big toe in your mouth?
Yeah, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Yeah, I know what you're doing. Yeah. And then also around the same time is Dan Snyder, who's doing these teen shows at the time because, again, man, that's Hollywood. You make money. You get more shows, you get more shit. But is it right? Is it wrong? It's questionable. Kids' Choice Award, they give out a Lifetime Achievement Award to Dan Snyder because he made all these shows. He's got iCarly, he's got that Ariana Grande show, he has all that. He's got the Amanda show, launched the career of Keenan and Kel, Good Burger, countless things. Good Burgers from all that. So it's like that's all there. But yeah, there is a weird sexualization to these characters. And meanwhile, he puts out this thing where he gets, Nickelodeon puts this out, the award show where he gets the award. And one of the main characters from Sam and Cat does not attend this and does not comment on it. And that is Jeanette McCourty. And she goes on to write a memoir about a creepy producer, which is obviously supposed to be Dan Snyder. It's like without a question. I think now it's come completely clear that that's who she's talking about. She talks about him being abusive, calling people idiots on set, pretty much basically demeaning people. Also could be a creepy sexual vibe. She talks about that. And she did not go to the award ceremony for him. And people talked about that on that, like, oh, it's obviously she wasn't there. And I don't fucking blame her. This is probably a horrible experience for her. And even during this whole time, she had her mother die. She had her mother die during this time, and she came back after like 3 or 4 days, and even the people on set were like, "I'm offended that she is here. Like, I'm offended. She should have took a couple weeks off, and that's fine." But no, she's fucking there. She's back there, and that's fucking horrifying. You know, horrifying. And then she does put out a memoir, and it talks about this hush money that she got from Nickelodeon, which is even crazy. I mean, who knows? Again, this is all allegedly, as Cat Williams. It's allegedly, as Cat Williams would say. As Cat Williams would say, allegedly. It's the Black Kings of Comedy. Allegedly, Jeanette McCourty said these things. She said, "I'm glad my mom died." Includes revelation that Nickelodeon actually agreed to offering her $300,000 in hush money, so she would not go public against the abuse she faced at the hands of the creator, the quote creator, which would have been Dan Snyder. Crazy. I mean, crazy. That's why I kind of do wonder. Like, I think more things will come out from this just later. I think there's NDAs in place. I don't think Amanda Bynes can ever say anything. There might be like a lifetime NDA on her, like where she can't say shit, and she's probably got a salary given to her, but she can't say shit. You know, and this is also around the time of iCarly. You know, like look at these girls. They're very like. I mean, I feel so creepy saying that, but like these are attractive women. These are attractive young women, you know, like that, like to me, I mean, maybe they think differently, but I know like this girl, when she's an adult, she'll be attractive. You know, like I know it. I think people like Dan Snyder attracted them here, which is crazy. But you know, these aren't your all that people. You're Lori Beth Denberg, who's kind of like a fat shit but funny. You know, like no, this is like even. I mean, I'm gonna say this: everyone in this fucking, you know, this is male, female, whatever. I mean, obviously this kid's older, but like, you know, the 1, 2, 3 here, these 3 kids, you know, they're like attractive people. You know, they're attractive people for their age. And it's just kind of scary because, you know, like they're casting these quote unquote attractive people that are fucking kids. You know, these are kids. Kids. And then, all right, so basically, the end. It's time for the end. Time for the end, right? Better than never. Basically, the last episode is kind of like a look back at the show. They have some people that did their interviews, kind of come back and talk about it live. They also have a rebuttal from Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder has a little bit of rebuttal, and I have to say, some of the things that he says, I understand. I think it's very scapegoaty, but he does say, like, hey, everything I fucking wrote got approved by the network. But the problem with that is they didn't care. This is the way business works. If you're making money, they don't fucking care. You're making money, they're gonna look the other way. They're gonna let you do it because they're like, well, he's making money. You know, like if you're not making money, then they'll start to look at it. That's how it works. So like, he's right and wrong. You know, and then also he did say like there was these double dare, all that dares where they'd basically have to do these fear factor things, and they were put in place to do like, you know, have worms all over them or peanut butter all over them, and the dogs would look it off. Like, kind of said, like, you know, I do look back at that and think I'm sad that they were uncomfortable then. I wish, you know, like I would have changed things if I knew that, which I don't think they had the feeling they could say something because, you know, this guy's in control and this guy's a fucking monster. This is like a kid's Weinstein.
Before we begin, I just want to congratulate Harvey and his wife Georgina on the birth of their new baby boy.
Thank you.
Harvey gave us just what we needed, another him.
Finally, I'd like to thank Harvey Weinstein, the Punisher, that's his nickname. The Punisher, yes.
Harvey, if I keep thanking you in public, people will think we're having an affair. But nonetheless, if you're choosing sides in the playground before a scrap, I would like to have Harvey Weinstein and Graham King on my side.
Harvey Weinstein, Bob Weinstein, God bless them.
My friends at Miramax for making this film, especially Harvey. And,
Harvey, thank you for killing whoever you had to kill to get me up here today.
And to Harvey Weinstein, the tough guy on the playground with the biggest heart. Thank you for saying you'd do anything for your friends, and you always do. Thank you.
And then Harvey Weinstein.
And Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey and Bob Weinstein. Everyone.
Thank you, Harvey Weinstein.
I want to thank Harvey and Bob Weinstein.
My agent, Kevin Uvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein. The Punisher. Old Testament, I guess.
Old Testament, I guess. Oh, that comes out so great looking now. Here's more stuff with just the sexualization of his characters. And he was awfully close to these girls in hot tubs with Amanda Bynes, getting, neck rubs. And I almost wonder, I know Amanda Bynes had these parents that were really pushing her for success. I almost wonder if they were playing to this guy being a pervert, just kind of go close to him. I question that too. I could see that with some gross parents. Here's some more questionable
Have you
stuff.
ever said something, like a sentence, and thought to yourself, wow, I bet nobody else on earth has ever said those exact words that I just said? That happens to me a lot. So now, just for fun, I'm going to say 3 sentences that I bet not one person has ever said before in the history of mankind. Sentence number 1. Oh, man, my uvula got stuck between that hamster's toes. See? That could never happen because your uvula is that swingy thing in the back of your throat right here. So there's no way you could get it stuck between a hamster's toes. Sentence number 3. I'm soaking wet! Quick, somebody bring me the ocean! No one would ever say that. Why? Because if you were soaking wet and you were upset about it, the last thing you'd want is for somebody to bring you the ocean.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't help but look at these things as an adult, but soaking wet on a bed. And she's not younger. I don't know. She's prepubescent. We have to admit that. This girl is 17 or something. Oh God, it's weird. And she is she's a very beautiful girl here. This is a hard thing to, it sucks. It sucks to say she's a good looking girl. And you're making her say these very sexual things.
Because the ocean is even more wet than even the wettest person in the world. Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out. Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty. It's not possible.
Yeah, that's the one that I definitely have to say. It's hard to not say that one's not
In the
sexual.
video. Come on.
And even the little moans, I kind of think she knew what she was doing too. And that's what it seems like with these actors. They're and actresses, they're playing into this creepy guy's fantasy because they know what he likes. And they want to work. So that's it. That's the fucked up part. But yeah, the guy Dan has done a little rebuttal to this, and and I will have to say this too. I've thought about it the whole time too. If this guy wasn't a creepy looking fat guy, let's say he was a American Psycho looking Christian Bale, I sadly have to say I think it would have been a little bit better for him. That's the sad part. I think it would have been Yeah, he was a little like I don't think his wouldn't even come up. There is a factor to this that he's an overweight, ugly, creepy looking guy that plays into it, and I'm not trying to victim shame, but I do think that is. And again, I will say I do highly recommend the show. It's not a fun watch. It's a good watch. It's well made, and there actually has been people that have come out that have complained about it, and it's kind of weird because it's like they're kind of complaining about I don't know. It's like child star complaints that are strange. Like I was seeing the complaints and I was like, oh god, I don't think you're right here. Like what you're complaining about is weird. I mean, one of the girls is complaining about it was on the Amanda show, and she's basically just complaining like I wasn't in it enough, which is like awkward. She's basically like I need s- I wanted more of the spotlight. That's basically her complaint. Like I mean, she also, by the way, was not someone who claims to be molested or any bad story, but she just wanted more spotlight. But she's like weird, weird. Yeah, watch this.
I'm done. I'm done. Last night.
By the way, that's another thing. You hear these girls that say I'm done. I'm done. Like I've heard ex-girlfriends say this. I'm done. I'm done. When they say they're done, they're never done. When they're done, it sounds like they're just starting because now she's gonna actually start talking. So you're obviously not done. If you were done, you wouldn't say anything. So that's just a point of perspective observation here.
The quiet on set producers or the team had a huge discussion. Everybody was gonna, I guess, come together to talk about the documentary. Do you think they invited me? Do you think that they even thought about inviting me to this type of discussion? And let me tell you what my problem is with this industry. Quiet on set. They did the same thing that the industry always does. They get what they want from you, and then they're done.
And you know what? As much as I think this girl is like fucking crazy, there is truth to that. It's just like basically like they don't care about your story. They just wanted the fucking ratings. They wanted a good show that's provocative and the case. And this is another thing with that Drake Bell guy. On this last episode, he promotes his song and a music video that's about his abuse, and I'm like, that's fucking weird. Like that's fucking strange. And the song sounds awful. It sounds like a bad Beatles song, but that's weird. Like that does kind of come off like you're just trying to, play into this. And that Drake Bell guy did have issues with substance abuse. He had a DUI. He also got caught sending weird messages to an underage girl, and he during a point of time he was missing from his peers, and they put out like a police report, and he was missing for a couple of days, or at least a couple hours. It could have been like a full day. I remember hearing about this at work. I didn't know who Drake Bell was. This was the time I was like, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. I mean, I knew of that show. I mostly knew of the other guy. It was called Drake and Josh. I knew of the goofy fat kid. I knew of him more than the other one. The other one was kind of like, to me, like, oh, that's the lame one. It's obviously like the goofy fat kid's probably pulling the show. But yeah, listen to this girl. She's a fucking nightmare.
Never did they think that I would want to be at a discussion like that or a part of a discussion like that. Like, really? This has actually been a very, very difficult thing for me to face. This is what has happened in my career.
Yeah, that's a good excuse.
Over and over again. This industry has done nothing but hurt me left and right from since I was a child. Okay? It is what it is. And I'm tired. I'm tired of the people in this industry. I don't care for an audition. I don't care to be on nobody's set. I don't care for nobody to recognize me for the work that I've done quiet on set. First of all, you don't even tell me what type of documentary that I'm going to be a part of. You never question whether or not this is going to be triggering for me. Okay? That's number one. Number two, it comes out and you tell me, oh, you're going to be in episodes number 1 and number 4. And then you call me the day that the 5th episode is about to come out and you say, hey, by the way, just to let you know, you're also in the 5th episode. But you forgot to say, oh, and we're also going to be having a panel discussion.
Yeah, guess what, bitch? They found a clip that they liked. They found a clip that they liked. They're like, oh, this can go here. And it happened to be yours. Yeah, that's how it works. They found an editing clip that could fill some relevant time. Sorry, you filmed it.
Talk about where you are today and how we can move forward. You want me to share my story, but you don't want to involve me in the actual.
Well, I would, looking at this interview, I would never want to talk to you ever in person.
Narrative of change? No, I can't do it anymore. I've given it all I can. I don't have nothing else. The show, I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to get back to my family.
What are you talking about? This is the thing that drives me crazy. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. But then you go on a fucking tirade for 2 minutes here. So what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is the stuff that, like, with women that, like, it's insane. If you were done, you wouldn't post this. You wouldn't go on 2 minutes talking about it. You're obviously not done. You're not done.
My business is, that's what I'm focused on. Because this industry, y'all can have it.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah. Obviously, yeah, nothing to do with you. You sound awful. You sound awful. And you're not even, like, you're not even molested. Come on, you even get molested. You're not the big star here. You got to get molested to get a big starring role in these kind of things, right? Come on. We want to have sensationalism. This is fucking Hollywood, bro. We want sensationalism. What do you kind of look like a Muppet, too. That girl looks like a Muppet.
Particular person started saying I look like a Muppet. And people say it so much, sometimes I start to believe it. And so I even asked them, I'm like, do I look like a Muppet? Oh my God.
The answer is yes. You look like a complete Muppet. If anyone ever asked me that, I couldn't help but do the joke of, like, yeah, you kind of look like a Muppet. Even if they didn't, I'd have to call them a Muppet. Because that's hilarious. But yeah, Quiet on Set. Worth watching, yes. Is it a hard watch? Yes. It's a hard watch. It's hard to hear about any child abuse. It's crazy. And also just like, like these kids, they grow up too fast and they're in an industry where, like some of these people are trying to make money for their families and that's weird. That shouldn't be your responsibility at 8 years old at all. You should be going to school. They're just bad. And then some of these people, they're like that Drew Barrymore situation. You're an 8-year-old doing coke at a Hollywood party with getting drunk. It's like, and no one's fucking telling you no. Like, that is wrong. And again, I that's the fucked up part is I understand these adults. They're thinking like, I work with this girl for fucking 8 hours and she's like a coworker. I don't care if she's getting high. This is funny. I know her like a friend. You start to treat them like an adult. They are not adults. They are not adults. And then even these kids, they start to feel like adults. They're not adults. But I get it. They feel like it because their peers are adults. It's a strange scenario. It's a bad scenario. And any laws that get put in place for these kind of things, I definitely support. Because it's bad to hear about this, I don't care if they're getting paid. This is bad. These kids are, obviously they hit the lottery with looks or with that or charisma or acting skill. They've hit the lottery. I get it. So everyone's like, oh, you're getting paid. But yeah, they shouldn't be treated horribly and subjective or sexualized at like a preteen era. And, I get it. Look at Ariana Grande at 16. She's attractive. I see it. She's a good-looking girl, good-looking person, at that age. and they're preying into it. That's the part that's terrible. You know, they're becoming part of the male gaze, and it also isn't bad either because it's like that. See, this is where like, well, they're like, oh, well, it's just for the 13-year-old boys, like they're the same age, and yeah, like I was that kid, and I liked those girls too when I was 13. I liked Ren Stevens, I liked Lizzie McGuire, but it's weird that you're putting that out there as a fucking studio while you could put out content that appeals to more regular kids, but and that's what I think all that and Double Dare, I think they kind of did that more. But yeah, that's my soapbox. We're Wizard _ Shaq will be back with the regular podcast. This is a special episode, not a real podcast episode. This is a special episode because trying to find some cool stuff. This was gonna be a Fright Finds. I'm still doing Fright Finds. Here's the clip. Still doing Fright Finds, and I thought about making this a Fright Finds because this is fucking frightful. This whole scenario. So yeah, it applies, but still not really a horror movie. It's a real life horror movie, so it doesn't super apply. But in the end, I'll have to say, fuck Ryder Strong, fuck that guy on SNL. I think his name is Carrion Killiam or some bullshit. Fuck that guy. Taryn Killiam. I hope you fucking burn in hell. Alan Thicke, you're definitely burning in hell. James Marsden, you're a terrible actor and, a terrible Cyclops, so I hope you're burning in hell later. Kimmy Johnson, kind of like you. Got a funny voice. Always liked her. I support you still. Got a funny voice. Got a funny voice, I'm in. Sorry, Drake Bell. And I know Drake Bell just want to promote his new video and song, which was awkward to see. Like, if I was Drake Bell, would have never even mentioned that. That could have just been like, that's extra. People look into you, they'll find your video. He promoted his video in that last episode. Said and they showed a clip of it. I started to open up about my situation, and it's like a diary to me, and that's what my guitar stuff is. It's a diary to me. So my latest video examines that. Maybe just say yeah, I'm still making music. I have a new video, and some of it deals with my situation. But no, it was very explicit. Go listen to my video that's about this, and that's questionable. And I don't doubt. Obviously, we know he's convicted, and he would admit to it. So I don't think obviously Drake Bell had to deal with some difficult issues, and that affects you long term, as we see with the drug abuse, alcohol. Yeah, it sucks. Don't put that evil on me, though, man. I'm not a bad guy. I just I'm observing. I'm observing these things.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby! Don't you put that on us!
Until next time, Wizard _ Shaq. We'll be back on Friday. Quiet on Set. Dark Side of Kids TV. Check it out. I give it. It's hard to give it a rating because it's so fucking. I can't even give it a rating. It's worth a watch. I can't give it a rating. This is terrible. Watching, this content is bad, but it is well made, and it is provocative. Check it out if you can. If you don't, you're fine. See you guys.